So what does a bank PO actually do? There are lots of responsibilities. I have divided it into 4 heads and I want to give you the most detailed video ever made on YouTube about this subject. So let's begin. Hi, this is Supriyo. So what does a bank PO actually do? Now this is relevant for SBI PO, for IBPS PO, for RRB PO and all the different probationary officers that are recruited in the public sector bank. So all of you can use this information hopefully, and today you are going to learn a lot more in depth. I don't think anybody on YouTube has ever covered it in depth like this. So I'll try my best. Now understand something, that a PO post, this probationary officer post, this is equivalent to your scale 1 post, right? So scale 1 means assistant manager. So you are effectively an assistant manager in the bank. So that is your effective post. And also remember that you are going to work as a probationary officer for 2 years. So for 2 years you are on probation. After that you become what is called a confirmed officer in the bank. And you also have to remember something, that depending on your branch, your work changes quite a lot. So whatever I am going to cover today, that is going to be quite general and it's going to be something on a broad based spectrum. So whatever your particular branch does, that can be a little bit different, and there is no way that I can list out each and every single thing. So the job profile, the work profile of a probationary officer, it is quite vast, and all of you will be already knowing that. So it's not going to be possible to delve into each and every single thing. If you have any questions, feel free to let me know. I'll try my best to help you out. I will just try to give you a top view, an overview of the entire things. So let us begin with all the pillars first. Now if you are thinking about your job profile, so there are 4 pillars essentially. So the first pillar that you have, that is your operations. So your branch operations, that is one of the most important things that you have to do, and I would say that 80 to 90% of you are going to start off with this operations part. So what are you supposed to do in the branch operations? So let us take a look. So branch operations, remember that if you are a sole officer, you can also work as a branch manager. Now this happens in very rural types of areas, in rural branches. If there are no other officers, if you are the only officer, then you can be asked to head the branch as well. So you can be the branch manager, though I am pretty certain that when you are entering the bank, you are not going to be given the reins to the branch managership immediately. So maybe towards the end of your PO years, you might be working as a branch manager. And I think that in my PO years, I did not really work that much as a branch manager. I think only once or twice they had made me do that, but it was quite in a limited kind of a way. So that's about it. Now for the branch operations, remember that when you are a probationary officer, even though the word is officer, you are also going to do the clerical work. So you cannot avoid it. So clerical work as well you have to do, and I would suggest that it's a nice thing to try out for the first few months of your life in the bank, because you get to know what the clerical staff does. And if you know about this, then nobody can later on in your life, nobody can show you that, okay, I have this much work, I am taking so much time. So they cannot dupe you later on, because you have worked as a clerk at some point of time. So you would be knowing that. So you would be asked to handle the SWO counters. So this is the single window operator, the SWO. So these counters, what they do basically, they do all kinds of activities. So even from the like the NEFT, RTGS transactions, so you are supposed to actually check the transactions and put the transactions into the system. From here you can also do the ATM, the checkbook issue and all types of things, KYC things, and effectively except for the cash operations, almost each and every single thing an SWO counter is supposed to do. So you can think of it as an all-rounder counter. So whatever work comes to you, you have to just finish it off. So any kind of work can be given in the SW work, and all the different kinds of things that you are seeing over here, except for this one, the cash counter. All the other types of work you can actually handle in the SWO counter. And usually in a bank branch, it is the clerical staff who are going to sit at the SWO counter. So they are the people who are going to make the queues, and you are supposed to be passing the queues. So there is the maker and checker concept. So I'll just get into that. Now the basic thing is that here you are actually working like almost a clerical staff. That's what you are doing. Now the second thing is you are going to increase the bank's deposit base. So the CASA, this is the current account and the savings account. Now remember that this word CASA, it is actually very important for a private bank. So the private banks, they always focus on increasing their CASA, because if you increase your CASA, then your funds, the cost of funds, it goes down. Now I have explained about this in my banking awareness videos. I think you have already seen that, so I won't go into depth into that, why it is preferable. And also the FDs, the fixed deposits, etc., all these types of things you have to actually handle. So you are going to be responsible as the person who is going to increase the deposits of the bank. So deposit growth, it's very important, right? Because understand, the bank's business, it is basically to take the deposits and then give the loans, right? So if you don't have enough deposits, you won't have the money by which you are going to loan the people, right? So that is why this is very important, and you have to handle all the deposits. So all kinds of deposit activities, whatever are there, so people coming to give their money, and also for the FDs, if they are maturing, what you have to do, you have to give them the money back, and you also have to actually do the renewal of the FDs and all kinds of those kinds of things. You have to do the different processings for those things, and it all comes under increasing the bank's deposit base. Then you have to do something which is explore both the maker and the checker roles. So it is only going to be initially that you are going to do. So initially you need to actually learn about both the maker and the checker. Now what is this basically? So in any kind of public sector bank, there is a two-tier process. So one bank employee, they will be starting the queue, or they will be making the queue, and another bank employee, they are going to check the queue. So if there is a transaction, say, so I'll explain by means of a transaction, so you are going to understand. So say there is an NEFT transaction, a NEFT transaction has to happen. Say that one customer is sending 5 lakhs to another customer. So if the transaction is to be made like this, so the maker, they actually create the transaction, they put in all the details, every single thing, and then they just click on one button and it creates a queue. So it creates a queue. Now what happens, this queue, this goes to the officer, to the concerned officer, and that officer verifies all the details. So is every single thing okay? Is the account number okay? Is everything that the customer has written, has the bank employee written everything properly? So once they have verified everything, then they are going to pass the queue. So the checker has to verify each and every single thing, and then by pressing one button, they can make the transaction go through. So that is what actually happens. A maker and a checker, both are working simultaneously in the bank. So this, you can understand what happens. This means that the responsibility is actually shared, and no one person can actually commit a fraud. So this reduces the chances of frauds in a bank, and there's very little chances that both the people are actually committing some kind of a fraud or anything. So one person cannot go ahead and do any kind of unauthorized transaction. So that is the entire concept. And there are of course some kinds of transactions which are only single level. So the checker himself or herself can actually do that, but those are limited. We don't have to go into those. It's something that you are going to learn later on. So anyhow, this is your initial thing. So initially you are working both as a maker and a checker, but after a few years you are going to be working only as a checker because you are an officer. So checker role, you have to understand that role very well. And then of course you have to do the green channel, the digital transactions, and also the clearing work. So clearing, this is basically the check clearing. So right now we have the CTS system, the check truncation system, and there's also the old system, the CCS, the check clearing system. So that also is there in some limited branches, and all these kinds of things you are going to of course learn about them in the bank. So not an issue at all. You might be asked to handle some of these counters sometimes. So it's just a very rudimentary kind of work. You are going to learn it very easily. And also the digital and the green channel. So there's a huge push in every bank, especially in SBI. So I've seen that people are trying to push the customers towards the digital channels because otherwise it's very difficult to give proper service. So green channel and the digital transactions, everything you have to do. Then your very important role, the role of KYC and AML. So the know your customer, anti-money laundering things. So there's lots of work for KYC and AML. There's also the CKYC that you have to do. So these are the kinds of things. So CKYC has been a very painful thing in the banks in recent years. But anyhow, bank has to do that because of the government prerogatives. So the government wants the banks to do all of these things. So you have to do the KYC and AML. It's very, very important. So KYC, some people, they think that it's a very casual kind of thing. Please don't make that mistake, because depending on KYC, there's also something called the BO, or the beneficial owner. So these days, the government wants to know the beneficial owner of every company, of every kind of organization, and every kind of your account should have the beneficial owner tagged, especially the NRI account. So these kinds of things can be very, very important, and it can be very tricky if you are not following all the rules. So don't make that mistake. The next thing is the passing officer role. So the passing officer, usually what happens is in the second year of probation, you are going to be just manning the passing officer role. So here you are the branch accountant. So you are the accountant or the service manager. So they also call it the service manager somewhere, and in other places it's called the branch accountant. So what you are going to do basically in these kinds of activities, you are basically just doing the passing. So all kinds of transaction queues, they are coming to you. You are passing all of those things, and all the other relevant branch operations you are going to be handling. Now the branch accountant seat, it is a hot seat, and you during the branch hours, you are not going to get any time at all, because everybody, almost all the queries are directed towards you. So whenever you are in the accountant seat, just remember that you have to be very patient, you have to be very calm, so that you don't make any mistakes. It is definitely a hot seat, but it is also something that is rewarding, because every customer will be knowing you, and when you go out of the branch, especially if you are in a rural area, you are going to have a lot of respect. So that's quite nice. The cash officer role. So the cash officer role, this is especially in the currency chests. So the cash officer, they are basically managing all the cash related activities in the branch, and in the currency chests, the cash officer role is significant, because you also have to report the things to RBI. So that is also very important. Earlier there used to be something called the ICOMS. So this ICOMS, this was earlier there. Now it has been replaced by some better systems, but you have to actually essentially report whatever is the cash that you are handling, whatever cash you are giving to the other branches. Because see what happens in a currency chest, you just get the money from RBI, and that money you have to transmit to the other branches. So that is what it actually happens. And also different branches will be sending you their excess cash. So that also you have to handle. So the cash officer role, it's quite interesting. So I was there for a few months as a cash officer, and it was quite interesting, to be honest. But of course, you are dealing with huge amounts of money. So be careful whenever you are as a cash officer. Then the next thing is the locker operations. So in the locker operations, what you are doing, you are just maintaining the lockers, and there are actually lots of rules in a locker operation. So whenever you are doing that, you have to be just following all the rules. And unfortunately, in some of the branches that I have seen, the locker rules are not being followed. So you will be taught all about these rules in your training program. So wherever you are going to get the training in your SBI or wherever you are. So just follow the rules and tell your branch manager or your accountant the rules, the latest rules, and make them follow them, because I have seen that there are lots of lapses in this area in many branches. The next thing is the ATM loading and ensuring the uninterrupted services. Now this is an area of the work that I didn't really enjoy, because ATM loading, it is really a cumbersome work. So you have to take the cash, go into the ATM. Of course, a guard will always accompany you. So you have to go and load the ATM with the cash, see that it is working. And whenever there is some kind of a problem, especially in SBI, then you're going to get a call from your ATM channel manager. So there is somebody who is actually called the ATM Channel Manager. So this ATM Channel Manager, they are sitting in your regional office, and they are monitoring all the ATMs in the bank. So whenever there is any kind of problem with any ATM, you're going to get a call. And the GCC machines as well. So the green channel counter, the GCC machines, whatever machines are there for your taking the cash from the customers, those things also you have to just see that it's working properly. So the recyclers, etc. So those kinds of things you have to maintain. So that is also part of your responsibility. And then of course the manning cash counter. So this thing, it's actually a little bit tricky. So very rarely will a PO be asked to handle cash directly. So I would suggest try to avoid it if you can. And this cash counter work, it is a very different kind of work. So you have to be very focused, and there are lots of chances for any kind of things to go wrong in the cash counter. So in my entire banking career, I think I can just count on my fingertips how many times I've sat at this counter, and I would tell you that it's quite dangerous as well. So there are lots of potential chances for customers to do frauds or any kind of things, because you are handling the cash directly, right? So whenever you are given this seat, make sure that you learn about the seat properly before you sit in it. And I would say that try to avoid it if you can, because it is not really a PO's responsibility to sit at the cash counter. So if there is nobody else, you have to do it, of course. But of course, like you can say that I don't want to do it, sir. The next thing is the death claims. So this is also another area where you have to be very sensitive, because almost every day you are going to get death claims. And like even in a moderately sized branch, like there are lots of death claims that are coming each and every single day, and these family members of the people who have passed away, the account holders who have passed away, so you have to be a bit more sensitive to them. You have to just try and get the money sorted very soon, and it is your responsibility to check for the correctness and for the eligibility. So only the legal heir has to get the money, nobody else should be getting the money, and always transfer it with from an account to another account. So that is also something that you have to do, or otherwise you can give some bankers checks. So you're going to learn all about it, but be very careful when you are handling these things. And then of course the favorite thing for many people, the audits. So of course the RFIA audit, or the risk focused internal audit. So this is the most important audit in the bank. Of course there are other statutory audits, concurrent audits, etc, etc, but the RFIA, this is something that makes people very worried, and rightly so. So during the RFIA times, you will be sitting in your branches till late at night. So yeah, that is something that happens, because the audits in a bank, it's very thorough and it is very comprehensive. So especially in SBI, I have seen that the auditors, they are very educated, and it's actually quite like very knowledge intensive work. So when you have handled one audit, you will be learning so much about the bank, about what the bank actually does and what are the regulations that you have to follow. And definitely quite an interesting work, but yeah, it is very strenuous and very time consuming. The next thing is the specialized work. So specialized work, it is about the forex, it is about the NRI services, the treasury, and other miscellaneous work. Now not all branches have these, so if your branch has that, so I would suggest that go and learn that. And especially all the remittance work, so all kinds of forex work that happens in your branches, like remittances, and especially like different kinds of software that is used, like Mercury or FX Out or all these kinds of softwares, they are quite interesting. So whenever you get a chance to work in forex or like these kinds of specialized activities, don't decline, and you're going to learn so much. So that is all about your branch operations part. So the next pillar, that is your loans section. So this is your advances section. So what are you supposed to do in your loan section? So let us see. So for the loans, now loans and advances, so this is the credit side of things. Now you will be seeing two things, like there is a loan, there is also an advance. Now the loan, it is usually technically, sometimes you can use this interchangeably, but the technical definition is that loan is something that is long term, so more than 1 year, that is the loan. And the advances are mostly the revolving kind of credit, the kinds of things that are actually paid out in 1 year itself. So that's the main difference, but more or less, they are used interchangeably in the bank. Now prospecting, that is the first thing. So prospecting is your lead generation, right? The lead generation, it is always very important in private banks. So in private banks, lead generation is particularly difficult, because not everybody trusts the bank to go ahead and take a loan, so they have to work a lot. But these days private banks, they are getting a lot of customers, so the public sector banks also have to work. So in SBI, I remember that we used to have to try and get people to take loans. So we used to sometimes ask the people who are nearby to the branch, who have the accounts in the branch, to take some loans. And there's a different nature in the PSBs. So if you are in a RUSU branch, in a rural or a semi-urban branch, what happens is usually people are going to come to you for loans. So you don't have to go there. So people are very much trusting of you. So that is a good thing. So you don't have to waste time to acquire customers. But when the customers come, you have to be somebody who is taking good care of them. Otherwise, they are going to run off to some other bank. So the things that you have to do. So the personal segment. So personal segment, this is your personal loans. So for example, your car loan is there. So you have the housing loan over here. You have the something called the express credit in the SBI, it's called. So it's basically nothing but a personal loan, normal personal loan. Then you have the gold loans. So the personal P segment gold loans, whatever you have, etc., etc. So all these kinds of loans, they are in the personal segment. And I think that most people, they start off their loan tenure with the personal segment, the P segment. So I started mostly with the P segment, and it was quite interesting. After a while, it gets a bit boring because there's not much challenges in this, but still it's quite interesting to learn how these things are working, and especially how you are giving the loan to the customer. So this is something that you are going to be taught. Don't worry about it. There are many parameters that you have to check before you give any loan to any customer. So those kinds of things you are going to learn. Then you have the agricultural segment, the agro segment. So here you have the KCC, then you have the ATL or the agricultural term loans, and the other kinds of loans like this. So these are also something quite different from the other types of loans. A different skill set is actually required for actually giving this. And like ATLs, I had not worked much. KCC, of course, I had worked. We have that interest subvention system as well. So subventions are also something that you have to learn. You have to also remember that these loans, they are actually prone to becoming NPS. We know what actually happens, and because many states, the politicians, they win the election and then they will be declaring that the loan waiver is there. So people are going to get their loans waived. All those kinds of things also you have to process, and any kind of OTS settlement schemes, so one-time settlement schemes, you have to process. And of course the NPS can be quite high in this segment, but some branches, they become lucky. There are good customers as well, but of course you have to handle all those kinds of things if they go wrong. Then also you have the SME loans. I would suggest this is the most interesting part. If any of you get the chance to work in SME, then your career is actually going to go like in a very good trajectory, because SME, there's a particular set of skills required, and this is the section where you have to understand the balance sheet much better. So you have to understand that. So you have to understand the drawing power calculation. So you have to calculate what is the amount of money that you can give to the customer. Then the CC loans and the TL loans, so the cash credit and the term loans, both are quite interesting, and you will be understanding which industry has what kind of loans running, and you will be understanding what the customer really wants from you. And some huge loans are there, so big ticket loans. These are not small loans at all. So very high amounts are involved, and of course you have to be maintaining the files in a very good order. So you will be learning lots and lots of things. The most number of things you are going to learn in SME, and there's so many things, so many interesting documents and all the things that you can learn over here. So it's actually an infinite area of learning, and I hope that many of you get the opportunity to work in there. And of course the next thing is the field inspections that you have to do. So here what you are doing, say for example you are giving a housing loan. You cannot give the loan just blindly, right? Sitting in a bank, you can't give it. So you have to drive to that area, you have to see that house, you have to see that everything is being done as per the project plan, and all the things are properly done, and only then you are going to disburse the next phase of the loan. So especially in these kinds of big loans, they are actually disbursed in phases. So you will just disburse one phase, and then you'll see the work that is being done, and then you are going to disburse the next phase. So those kinds of things, the inspections are very important. So you have to go to the field, you have to talk to the customer, sometimes the builder, and then you have to give the loan. Then you are also going to be responsible for loan recovery. Now this is something that I did not enjoy, and I'll be honest with you, it's not the best work. So you have to go to the customer, you have to demand that loan back, and it is quite, to be honest, very difficult work. So I was lucky that in many branches, the responsibility for loan recovery, it was taken by some other people. So sometimes there are local people in the branch who are working. So those people who are localites and they know the people very well, they go to the homes, they demand for the loan, and they know everybody, right? So there's a social pressure. So if you can find somebody who can create social pressure, so this is quite interesting. Like if human beings, we do not like to have our status like go down, right? So if there is somebody who knows that person and everybody around them, and if that person is going and demanding for the loan, so they are very much serious about it. So that is how you can do that. Some branches you can be doing that, otherwise you have to do it yourself, which sucks, I know, but of course it is part of your responsibility, and it can be a little bit dangerous in some places, but yeah, most of the places, like 99% places, it's not going to be dangerous, and you have some rules and regulations that you have to follow. Then you have to do the Lok Adalat work, the SARFAESI, the Debt Recovery Tribunal. So these are all recovery aspects as well. So you have to follow up, you have to prepare the documents, you have to go to the hearings, whatever is there, you have to do. That is all part of your responsibilities. Then upselling whenever possible. So I remember that whenever there was a chance to offer the customer some different product, or maybe offer some kind of cross-selling product, people used to go ahead and do that, and this is also something that is expected from you. So the loan customers, they are actually good customers, most of them, so you can try and sell some more products to them, and it's always good for the bank. The next is, of course, you have to provide prompt service. So when I'm talking about this prompt service, you have to stay late. Whenever you're working in loans, believe me, you will be staying late. This is something that you cannot avoid, and like 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, like there's no limit, because the customer, they can say that okay sir, I have this work, I'll be only available after 9 o'clock. So fine, you have to sit at your branch, and then when the customer is available, he or she will be coming, and then you're going to discuss everything and then give the loan. So the service, of course, don't expect that you are in a PSB, this means that you don't have to give service. No, these days every institution has to give good service. The changing scenario of the loan segment, so this is quite good. In SBI especially, it is now happening that the entire scenario is being changed. There are different cells. So there is one cell which is procuring the loans, and then another cell altogether that is actually doing all the processing work. So processing work you might not have to do at your branch as well. So this is something that is quite good, and recent days it has actually gained traction, and I'm hopeful that you don't have to do a lot of processing. If you are in the branch, you can just send it to your central office, to your link office, and then that link office is going to actually do the other work. Then there's another very important thing, the PAPL, the pre-approved personal loan. So this is actually the SBI YONO initiative. So it's a digital initiative, and this is giving loans by not having that many paperwork. So the paperwork is quite limited, and you are doing it just by dint of the customer, by knowing how the customer is valuable or not. So it is automatic, and PAPL, I would suggest that if you have some targets in your branches, go for the PAPL, because it's the best way by which you can just meet all your loan targets, because there's not a lot of paperwork and you are going to do the loan disbursals very fast. But remember, if they are NPA, then you have to follow up as well. Now the third pillar is the sales and marketing. So what are you supposed to do in sales and marketing? Remember, in sales and marketing, your branch manager decides many of these matters. So which are the kinds of things you have to do? Only your branch manager can tell you. So your responsibility, it is to be aware of the latest SBI circulars. So there's an app available. You can read about it, about all the products that are being available at SBI. So you have to be very, very conversant, because you are selling them, right? The cold calling stuff, now people don't believe it when I tell them, but yeah, you have to do cold calling sometimes, not always. So sometimes third party will be handling it. So for example, the SBI cards. So SBI cards, they have different people, so they'll be coming to your branch. You have to just provide support to them. They are going to do the cold calling. You just don't have to do all of those things on your own. But sometimes if they are the bank's customers, you have to give some kind of loans. So for example, I told you about the PAPL, right? So for the PAPL, you yourself will have to do the cold calling. I myself have done it, and every officer has to do that. You have to report to the field as well. So sometimes you have to go to the field, you have to talk with the potential customers, some merchants. So there might be some kind of apps that you're promoting. You have to go to the field, you have to try and get those people into your system. So those things you have to do. And conducting special drives for awareness. Now this is something that we used to do in sometimes in some colleges. For example, if you want some education loans, so you can do it in the colleges. And then also sometimes you can do it in companies as well. If you want the lot of accounts perhaps if a company has, you want all those accounts in your branch, so you can give like some kind of special service. So there are salary accounts. So salary accounts are extremely good. So if you are in a position to actually offer lots of salary accounts, then believe me, your branch revenue is going to grow by leaps and bounds. Then you have to organize some events like loan melas. So loan melas, they are actually happening in a big region. So not only one branch will be involved, but many branches are going to be involved. And I had been involved in those kinds of things. Multiple branches and huge kinds of loan melas had actually happened. Now, engaging with the high net worth individuals and the current account holders. So the current account holders, they are the backbone of your branch, and also the HNIs. So they have huge deposits in your bank, and that is why you have to engage with them. You have to talk with them. Sometimes you might have to visit them. So these kinds of things you have to do. And the regional office employees, so if you are posted in the RBO or the regional office, so you have to do the coordination and the follow-up with the branches. So your task is mainly to see that the other people follow their tasks. So that is also something that you have to do. Now, the final thing that I have to tell you is that these targets, they are not linked to the salary, but they actually help in your promotion. So remember, your salary is not going to be reduced if you can't follow the targets. And believe me, there are targets. So remember that as a PO, you are not going to get that many targets. The PO does get targets these days, but it's quite limited. So if you don't follow, like if you don't satisfy all the targets, it's fine. But once you become a confirmed officer, you are going to get lots of targets and you have to follow them. But your salary is never going to be cut, just your promotion aspects. That is determined by how much or how many targets you have actually finished. So that is all about the sales and marketing. Now let's talk about the fourth pillar here. So cross-selling. Now remember, cross-selling, this is quite linked to the sales and marketing, and cross-selling is a world of its own. So I don't think I want to go too deep into this, otherwise the video will become very long, but just let me tell you the main fundamentals that you have to sell. So mainly you are going to sell three types of things. So there's going to be insurance, there's also going to be mutual funds, and also there are going to be cards. So these are the three types of things that you are going to be selling as a SBI PO. And this insurance, this is the bank assurance. So this is actually the most important thing, and believe me, if you are good at selling insurance, then you are going to grow in the bank very fast. So your promotions, they are going to go very fast. You are going to get them very fast, because this is an area where the bank is focused quite a lot. And cross-selling is also about the mutual funds, the cards also. So all kinds of targets that you have for these different kinds of things, you have to try and just meet them. And some people, they don't become like huge sellers. So I would be giving you a warning. If you want a life that is not too hectic, if you don't want too much work pressure, then just meet your targets. Don't exceed your targets. So if you have, for example, a target of 2 lakhs, so just meet that. Just go to 2 lakhs, or at least if you can't meet, at least do like 1.8 lakhs or something. Like if you do that, then people will still be like, okay, you have done your part, but they are not going to expect too much. Now, if you do 5 lakhs, say in 1 month, because you got some good customers, then you are going to be in a problem, because you have done 5 lakhs and the next time they are going to ask for 6 lakhs or 10 lakhs. So remember that if you have customers like that, there's a strategy that you can follow, and you can just tell them that, okay, this month you don't have to do that. Next month you can ask some other customers to actually buy it. So if you do it like that, then your life will be much more smooth. So you have to do these kinds of things. And believe me, like cross-selling, this is a major problem in banks these days, and they are going to force you to do that. There's no way around it. So you can, as a PO, so you can actually escape a little bit as a PO, but after you become confirmed, so there's no chance. There's no chance. You have to go ahead and sell all those kinds of things. But yeah, about cross-selling, I think we might need to do a different video, a separate entire video. I'll think about it. But yeah, this is also part of your job responsibilities. And finally, yeah, so we come to the final section of the video, which is what you should not do. This is very important. So let me tell you a few things you should not do. First thing is, don't sign anywhere. Like, try to avoid signing things. And yeah, if you are passing things, if you are a passing officer, you have to sign it, but at least don't sign some of the important things like your banker's checks. Don't sign the banker's check. Then also the DD. don't sign the DD as well. And also in important loan documents, you should not have your signature. So any places where you are feeling that it's a bit of high accountability, don't sign those places. It's very important that you avoid these things because you are just a PO, so you should not be signing those things. The second thing you have to remember, do not do any kind of loan sanction. Understand this. You can process loans. Processing is not a problem. You can also do the disbursal. So disbursal is also not a problem. But loan sanction. Sanction means that you are granting that loan. It is under your authority that the loan is being given. So sanction work, do not do that, because that is also something that a PO should not be doing. The next thing is about high value transactions. So if you have any kind of high value transactions, always consult your seniors. So high value, it's like if you have something like greater than 50 lakhs or something, so do not try to do it yourself, because those kinds of things, there are many kinds of problems. You have to see the finer details and you have to just protect yourself. So always protect yourself. Do not put yourself in that kind of a risk. So whenever high value transactions are there, just request some other officer to do it. Don't pass it yourself, because later on down the line there can be some complications and you don't want this, because right now you don't know that much. So just remember that. The next thing is about the keys. So sometimes your manager or your account manager or your P segment manager or your branch manager can ask you to take the keys and take possession of the keys and handle them. No, you are not supposed to be handling keys as a probationary officer. Remember this. So don't have the branch keys with you, don't have the safe keys with you, don't have any kinds of these important keys with you, because these are huge responsibilities, and when you take them with you to your home, like you are taking additional burden. And don't really ever put yourself in that kind of a position as a probationary officer, because later on you will have to do it, and right now you don't need to. And also, if you are keeping keys, then it becomes very difficult to get leaves. So that's also something that you have to remember, that the leaves if you want, so don't keep the keys with you. So that is something important. The next thing is about the remittances. So remittances, there are lots of remittance work that you have to do, because in your branch you have to maintain the cash, right? So sometimes you have to take your cash and deposit it in some other branch. Otherwise, sometimes the other branches will be bringing cash to you. So these kinds of things, be very, very careful and look up all the rules. So if you have like 1 crore or above, then you need 2 guards. So remember these kinds of things, that there are 2 guards involved. So whenever there is a possibility that you are taking huge cash and you don't have guards, do not do that. I have seen people are doing these kinds of things. It is very, very wrong. If something goes wrong, nobody will be protecting you. So don't take that kind of a risk on your head. Always ensure that you have read the service conditions, you have read the regulations. So if you are taking heavy cash, you should have 2 guards with you. So remember, these kinds of things are very important. Nobody is going to teach you. Everybody is just going to tell you, yeah, it's going to be fine, we do it all the time. No, you should always follow the rules. This is very important. And finally, about clerical work. So I would say that there's nothing wrong in doing clerical work, in helping clerical staff. There's nothing wrong. It's good to help. But remember, you are an officer. You have to learn about the officer responsibilities. So as far as possible, reduce the number of hours that you take to do any kind of clerical work. Just reduce this and try to do more and more officer-centric work, because that is something that is going to grow your career. Now, that is all about the different roles and responsibilities. I hope that you learned something from this video and that it was beneficial to you. If you enjoyed it, please click on the like button and share it with your friends. And if you want to see more of this kind of content, please click on the subscribe button and do not forget to click the bell icon so that you, my friend, do not miss any future update. I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.